So we are in the animals, and now we're moving into the triploblastic animals. And triploblastic animals, hopefully you remember what that means. Triploblastic animals have 3 germ layers. They have endoderm, they have ectoderm, they have mesoderm. And typically, they have a one-way gut, meaning they have a mouth end and they have an anus end. And what happens to the blastopore, which is that first little change in shape from being a hollow ball, the blastopore either becomes the mouth or it becomes the anus. And then when the archenteron pokes all the way through, that either becomes the anus or the mouth, depending on what kind of animal we're looking at. So the first group of animals we're going to look at are the ones where the mouth comes first, protostomia. Okay, and so the blastopore becomes the mouth, and these animals develop in that fashion. So we've got 2 major groups of protostomes. Which are called the Lophotrochozoa and the Ecdysozoa. And these don't really have very common names that you may have heard of before, but the Lophotrochozoa are the non-molting protostomes, and the Ecdysozoa are the molting protostomes. So maybe that helps, maybe it doesn't. Okay, but within the Lophotrochozoa, the non-molting protostomes, one of the first phyla to consider are the flatworms, the Platyhelminthes are flatworms. And we're going to treat the Platyhelminthes like they are a true monophyletic phylum, but they're really not. That's something for later you to have to contend with. But for now, we're just going to say the flatworms, the Platyhelminthes, are a group of Lophotrochozoans, non-molting protostomes, and they consist of 3 classes, and I'm going to draw one of those here, which is the class Turbellaria. So Turbellaria include what we're going to draw here, which is a Planarian. So Turbellarians are free-living, meaning they're not parasitic, whereas the other 2 classes within the Platyhelminthes, which are the Cestota and the Trematoda, those are both parasitic classes. So these are your free-living flatworms, and we're going to find, well, let's go ahead and draw one. So this is going to try and be similar to what you might find in your textbook. It's just going to look like something like this. Okay, so one of the things that we find for the first time in the Bilateria is having a specific region of the body where we have an accumulation of sensory organs, which give the animal a directionality to their movement. And you already know this word. This is the head. And this process of forming a head is called cephalization. Let's try that again. Cephalization. I have a helper who has a head who is trying to use his head to lick my face as I draw because he feels like he's being ignored. Poor brother. Baby boy. What are you doing? He's trying to lick me because I'm sweating and it's very tasty. Anyway, so cephalization is forming a head. Okay, get down, boy. Thank you for your help. So let's draw on this head some of those sensory organs. You might say, aha, that looks familiar. That looks like a pair of eyes. And it's not quite a pair of eyes. Remember, this is the first time we're seeing organs associated with vision. And they are not very sophisticated. They are essentially only being used for detecting light and dark. So that these are not considered to be true image-forming eyes. Rather, they are called eye spots. Because if you had a planarian, it wouldn't know if it was you or your mom or your sister or brother who was coming in to visit with them. They would just see a shadow and know that they were in a shadow because they can't really see. Okay, so we've got these eye spots for detecting light and dark. Also on the side of the head, well, we've got one on either side. I just pluralized it. We've got auricles. And auricles literally means little ears. Auri is like, same word root as like audio, and A-U-R-A-L is aural, pertaining to the ear. So this, and we've seen this ical suffix before, like in the pellicle, molecules, all of that means it's just a little bit of a something rather than a great big something. In this case, these auricles are not for detecting sound, for detecting motion of airwaves, but that they are actually... See that? Do you see that? They're actually doing what my baby boy, Brada, come here, is doing right now, which is he's trying to lick me because he's trying to detect chemicals. Trying to taste me. Uh-oh, is that my other helper is here, Miss Ilio. Oh, they're both here now. And they're both chemosensing me. Chemosensation, typically we call that taste, or we call it smell, depending on whether the particles that we are detecting are dissolved in water or dissolved in air. So you may have heard that smell and taste are two senses that are very closely associated with each other. If you hold your nose, you can't really taste things. And when you have a cold, food doesn't taste the same because you don't have that smell component to it. And that is true. But for this Planarian, these auricles are kind of tasting their environment or smelling it rather than actually hearing it. There's not very much to hear at the scale that they're existing. Okay. So another thing we're going to draw down here, you might say, well, we've got something that's like eyes and something that's like ears that's really a nose or a tongue. But where's the mouth? And the answer is, it's right down here where you're not expecting it to be. The mouth is down here, kind of midway along the body of the animal. At the end of this structure, which is called a protrusible pharynx. And we've seen pharynx before. We've seen a pharynges, would be the plural of a pharynx, in the cytopharynx, in ciliates, like not the paramecium, that's what we're drawing right now. No, that was what we did. That was what we did before, paramecium. We are now drawing a planarian, which is different. All right, but they have this protrusible pharynx. Pharynx, you have a pharynx too. It is your throat. So this structure is kind of like a trunk on an elephant in that it is protrusible, so it can kind of angle around and ferret out food as needs be. Okay, now this pharynx leads up to can kind of drawing it in kind of a funky way. This is a GVC. Hopefully you remember what GVC stands for. I'm not going to write it down, but I'll tell you it's a gastrovascular cavity. So very much like we saw in the Cnidaria, we've got this one kind of body cavity for kind of accomplishing all of the moving stuff around, moving food in, moving waste out, moving respiratory gases internally. Speaking of moving respiratory gases, well, I'm going to write anus before I get into that. But so this mouth also serves as an anus, and another reason why flatworms are flat is because they don't have a coelom. They don't have a respiratory system, so they can't move oxygen around their bodies, but they require oxygen to survive. So in order to have that, they have all of their cells be near the surface of the organism. So being flat helps you accomplish that surface to volume. It's a resolution to that surface to volume problem. Okay. So not a whole lot else going on here, although I know it's kind of make it look kind of like it's a glam rock planarian. It's not. But I'm going to draw these extra lines here. Maybe I'll color those in. In our text, these are in yellow. Yeah, I'm going to draw these in. I'm going to color them in. That'll make it a little bit more clear. In our textbook, it's yellow. So I'm going to draw this in yellow, or whatever the closest thing to yellow I can easily come upon. That'll work. Okay. And this is another thing that we haven't really seen before, besides having a head, is having a nervous system. Now, Cnidarians have nerves, and they don't have brains per se, and our Planarian also does not have a brain. We'll get into what it does have in a moment. Here's one. So they have to have some type of nerves to coordinate muscles, because muscles can't just kind of do what they want to do on their own. They have to be told what to do by nerves. Okay. So this yellowish color is nervous tissue. And instead of having a brain, we have a cluster of nerves at the anterior end, which is called a ganglion. A ganglion is a cluster of nerves. So it does kind of centrally control many nerves, but it is not so sophisticated as a brain. Our brains are enormously sophisticated organs that have not just nerves, but glial cells and a whole bunch of other things. You know, that's kind of like comparing, one farm with Tokyo. The one farm where there's some, 5 folks maybe living there running everything versus Tokyo, the largest city in the world. That's the difference between like having a ganglion versus having a brain. So just a function of scale. But these ganglia can actually help direct muscular movement, which is pretty much what the meat of this organism is muscular tissue. But you can see that we've got 2 nerve cords, and it's kind of hard to resolve in the way that I've drawn it, so I'll just label it and tell you that these nerve cords, this is something we're going to see a lot throughout the protostomes, is that there's two nerve cords and they are ventral. Ventral, running on the ventral side. Which one's the ventral side? So for this Planarian, the belly side is the ventral side. So in vertebrates, like you and I, we don't have a ventral nerve cord like this. We have a dorsal nerve cord. It's tubular and there's just one of them. So your spinal column is the seat of the central nervous system. Enables you to move your legs and arms and everything else. So that is a big difference between protostomes and deuterostomes that we're going to see repeated again and again as we do our drawings, is ventral nerve cords versus a dorsal tubular nerve cord. Okay, so that about covers it for our Planarian. If we want, maybe we'll go ahead and we can color in our meat around the GVC. Doesn't extend into the head. If you're still watching, that's great. If you're not, then how do you know what I'm saying? You don't. You don't have to color in the this tissue here the way I'm doing it. Another thing with the Planarian, besides having all of its tissues being close to the surface to accomplish gas exchange, you do have this what's called a triclad or a three-lobed GVC. So one lobe here and then one lobe on either side towards the posterior end. That's not super important, but just something interesting. If you ever adopt a pet Planarian, you're like, what's going on there? Is that normal? Could be. Planaria also known for their amazing powers of regeneration. Something we see a lot with relatively simple animals is that being simple, we think of being complex as being the best way to be, but if someone chops off your head, well, that's it for you or me. But for a Planarian, you can chop off the head or section it and it'll grow back because it's a relatively simple thing to do. Anyway, there's your Planarian. Hope yours looks better than mine, or as good as, or maybe just a little bit not as good, I don't know. But hopefully you have all the parts there labeled and you know what's going on with your Planarian.